A few years ago, if you would say, let's print money to make everyone rich, no one would take you seriously. Yes, you can print money, but we should do that responsibly. We can't randomly print money and just give everyone some cash. That's not how the economy works. We own capitalism. Remember that Andrew Yang promised the UBI, Universal Basic Incomes, and people bombarded him with the billions of the arguments why that's never going to work. But then 2020 is like, let me prove all of these people wrong. The Fed literally pumped $3 trillion into the economy. The government distributed cash to ordinary people. Everyone got their stimulus checks, which they ended up spending on the amazing buying useless stuff. Well, not everyone, and at the end of the day, most people had to put food on the table one way or another. That's supposed to cause huge inflations, right? But it didn't, at least for now. The Fed has been around for over 100 years and it has created a lot of the money since then. However, in every $5 was created last year. Throwing that much money into the economy is supposed to create non-just inflations by hyperinflations. Have you seen the picture of the carrying bags of money just to buy the bread, or kids using the cash to paying around in Zimbabwe? That's what hyperinflation is. So, why was inflation just a little over 2% last year? Why does the Fed keep printing even though it knows it can cause high inflations? How the Fed creates the bigger financial bubble in history? When this bubble going to crash? And how that is going to impact the stocks market? We will answer all of these questions and many more. But before we do that, give this video the thumbs and let the algorithms know that you enjoy our videos. And make sure to comment. And now let's go right into it. The biggest financial bubble in history. We have already explored how the economy works in the previous videos, but let's just have the quick recap. The economy follows the cycles where it expands for a few years, then it peaks and slowly starts falling into the recessions. And the job of the Federal Reserve is to make sure that inflation doesn't rise too fast when the economy is booming by cutting the supply of the money through high interest rates, for example. And when it falls into the recessions, it makes sure that the recession isn't too painfully by the flooding the market with the cheap money to stimulate growth. When interest rates are low, everyone jumps into the borrow money like in the 2020. Mortgage rates were so low that everyone who saved enough for the down payments did take a mortgage to the point where economists are warning us of another housing bubble. So in the middle of the pandemic, where many people lost their jobs, struggles to pay bills, house prices are rising. Why? Because when too much money causes a chase to little goods, prices increase for the value of existence. Dollars falls. The number of the houses in the market didn't change much, but since the many more people decided to take the mortgage, the demand increased, which is why price increased as well. But why is that a problem? Every time we had a crisis, the Fed stepped in and saved the economy by pumping trillions of the dollars into the economy or lowering interest rates to the bare minimum. It did that last year. It pumped trillions more back in 2008 to prevent the economy from the collapsing and the crisis before that. So the same experts believe that we are living in the bubble that will sooner or later burst and take it down with the entire economy. Take a look at this chart. Since we have abandoned the gold standard in the 1971, inflation has been rising through the roof. It's rising as if there is no tomorrow, and with more stimulus bills, that charts will rise faster, especially when the Fed pumped it into the economy over the $3 trillion this year. A signed US dollar today worth just 4% of a dollar in the 1914. $100 in the 1914 is equals in the purchase power about the 2,600 today, and increased to 2,500 over the 170 years. This means that today prices are 26 times higher than the average price since 1914. Will that bubble burst this year, next year, 10 years from now? I don't know, and no one knows. It might just never happen. The Fed successfully kept the inflation around 2 to 3%. It might be able to do that for another 100 years, and what happens 100 years from now isn't something we should be too worried about now. But let's find out if the stock market is overvalued today, because if it isn't going to crash, or at least we will witness corrections. Will the stock market crash? When the stock market crashed last year, why it suddenly jumped back and straight rising? Because the Federal Reserve lowered interest to zero and started buying bonds. A bond is basically the price of the paper that the government or the company issued that says, if you buy this paper, I will own you this much money plus interest. What if the interest is 0%? I guess everyone would want to get that kind of the loan. The Fed usually buys government's bonds to help the government raise money, but in March 2020, the Fed indirectly started buying the corporative bonds. This means companies could suddenly borrow billions of dollars at almost 0%, so no matter how bad the crisis is, their companies could borrow money for free to survive. The problem with that was the Fed even bought junk bonds, which means that it started loaning money to the company that's supposed to go bankrupt but survived because the Fed gave them a lot of money. Think about what happens when the Fed stops giving them money. They will go bankrupt, or at least be less profitable, which will drive investors away, which will push their stock price to fall. In other words, the stocks market is filled with overvalued stocks right now. But that's not at all. The Fed open purchase bonds for the largest companies in the market, such as Apple, Microsoft, and Home Depot, and so on. That's one of the main reasons why the stocks market rose dramatically. You don't have to be a genius to understand what happens when the Fed stops buying the corporate bonds or raise interest rates. Of course, that's cause inflations, but the Fed is comfortable with inflations even higher than the 2% because if it did not step into the safe economy, the recessions could have easily turned into the depressions. It would have taken us much longer to get out of the crisis. Inflation is bad, but what's more devastating than inflation is deflations. When price starts going down, that looks like a good thing, right? Your money starts becoming more valuable. Why spend your money today when it's going to be more valuable tomorrow? And that's the problem. In that case, everyone will start saving. When no one spends, the economy will future get into the crisis. That's the way it was very important for Fed to step and food the market with the cheap money, because during crisis people are afraid to spend since no one is certain about tomorrow. At the time of writing this script, interest rates are still between 0 to 0.25%, but that's not going to be forever. Once everyone get back to work and we reach herd immunity, the Fed will slowly rise interest rates and the stock market will probably crumble. I would be surprised if all the companies that survived just because the Fed purchased their wealth worthless bonds to go bankrupt on the one after another. And the top 10 companies that made almost one third of the S&P 500 is slowed down. It's really difficult to predict what is going to happen tomorrow with alone a few months from now, but the current administration is focused on the another stimulus bills. So the market will probably keep rising at last until the summer. If the corrections would happen, it would probably be the second part of the year, or maybe not this year, because the market doesn't follow any logic. Even if I bring up the thousand logical arguments why the market is overvalued, the market might take the entirely different directions. But it doesn't hurt to be ready to such a crash. Meanwhile, you can get at least 2 free stocks from the Webull if you use the links in the descriptions. If you have enjoyed this video, you will most definitely enjoy the custom playlist that I have created specifically for you, that has our most popular videos on businesses, investments, and the stocks market that can potentially change your life. And now give this video the thumbs up that it deserves, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Thanks for watching, and until next time.